Lists. Lists, lists, lists. That's how we keep track of all the projects we have going on board. But how do you even think about the lists in the first place? Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast, your podcast source for all kinds of information related to cruising. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by FastSeas.com. FastSeas.com. Plan your next passage using FastSeas.com. Whether you're after speed or comfort, FastSeas will find the optimum route to your destination. FastSeas, making weather routing simple. Use coupon code GALLEY2019 for an exclusive 10% discount. One of the things that happens when you get a boat and you start to get ready to go cruising is you think about all these different projects that you have going on. The projects that you need to do, the projects that you want to do, the projects that somebody suggests you should do, and you think that might be a great idea. So how do you even start thinking about putting them into lists? Because maybe it's just me, but if I don't write things down, there's no way in heck I'm going to remember it. So today I'm going to talk to you about 3 different ways that I approach the writing down of ideas for boat projects that might trigger my brain power, that might trigger my remembrances so that I don't forget things. The thing that's great about having lists, particularly electronically, is that it's really, really easy to add to them. Well, maybe that's not such a great thing, because after all, no boat is ever completely done. From order of perhaps most targeted to most nebulous, my way of organizing lists for boat projects. One way that I organize my boat project list, and let me back up just a second and say that my husband and I each have running lists of projects. Actually, Jeremy has one list that he shares with me, and then I wind up with 4 or 5 other lists, some of which I remember to share with him and some of which I don't. But when we really get going, then they go onto the one list that is shared and is electronic, and then it's always at our fingertips. Jeremy's a tech guy. It's much easier for him to keep that as a regular thing, and I'm a paper and pen kind of a person, and so my preference is to write it down with physical implements. But I will say it's an awful lot easier if it's on a list that's on my phone and I can add to it. So how do we figure out what we need to do before we head off to go cruising? There's no right way to organize, and there's no right way to come up with your lists, but here are 3 of my ways. One way that we think about our lists and our projects is by things to buy. This list may be very, very simple, but a couple of reasons why this is kind of a good way to organize yourself. It lets you think about the projects that you have to do on the boat, and then all the associated purchases that need to be made with those projects. And then you start looking, and you can have a running list either on Amazon or on eBay. It allows you to get an idea of what the regular price is, and then you're very aware if something is a deal. You can then start researching and figuring out and understanding what the real price is so that when there's a good deal, you can jump on it. We've done a couple of these things already. For instance, we knew that we wanted a windlass. Well, we researched all the different kinds of windlasses that possibly would fit on our boat. We were able to narrow it down earlier, and then we could look at what the prices were. And so at the Annapolis Boat Show last fall, when I walked up to one of the windlass people, I knew what a good deal was. And so when it was there, it was actually a good deal. And so then I could buy it. The other way that making a list by things to buy is helpful is it makes you understand, or helps you to see, it helps us to see anyway, the different things that are associated with a project. So for instance, when we're talking about that windlass, which is going to involve, we've already removed the old one, but it involves getting electric windlass, but it also involves heavier duty wiring. It involves the battery. It involves making decisions about how we're going to seal the deck opening that we have to put through to have that kit work the way we want it to. When we're talking about the windlass, it also goes into what the wiring project is. And so then thinking about things like a new breaker panel and how we're going to run the wires and how we're going to hide them through conduit and mark them and all that kind of stuff. So Writing down the pieces of kit that you need to buy for a given project can also help you think about how all the projects are related, and then you can maybe organize them and think about the timing of what you're going to do when as you're doing that. Another way to organize projects is to think about the things that have to be done before you leave. It's just really easy to think that every single project needs to be done before you can slip the dock lines and head off to sea. But really, a boat is always a boat in progress. If you try to get every single project done before you leave the dock, I am sorry to tell you, but you probably will not ever leave the dock. There are some things, though, that need to be done before you can leave. For instance, the 3 things that we absolutely must get done before we head off sailing are: we need to get the windlass project done because that involves the anchor. It involves being able to easily anchor and up anchor. We anchor out all the time, so that's a critical piece of kit. We also need to have the bunk done because the bunk project is something that has to be done before we can have a place to sleep. So yeah, I'm not going cruising without a place to sleep. I'm not a hammock person. No, thank you very much. The galley is another thing. I need to be able to cook because we need to be able to eat. We need to cook on board. That's one of the ways that we stay within our budget. So those 3 things absolutely must be done. And if we make that list of these things must be done, they all have kind of boat project creep things that happen with them. As I mentioned earlier, the windlass is going to involve the wiring. As we set our bunk up, we will also need to deal with the table and some reworking of the interior and how the lights are going to be and where the fans are going to go and that kind of thing. So all of those are related to must be done before we leave. Things that are not on that list include getting a new dinghy and a new outboard. That's something that we would like to do before we go across the Pacific, but right now that's not critical before we take off cruising to go to the Bahamas or Canada or wherever we decide we're going when we first slip the dock lines, when we go next time. So thinking about what needs to be done before you head off is a good way to think about boat projects and a good way to make a list. And then I have to tell you, my favorite way of making boat project lists is just the brain dump project list. I just write down every single thing that I can think of at any given time. The problem with the brain dump list is that it takes a lot more massaging and a lot more organizing to figure out what truly is critical, what truly needs to be bought for the things that need to be done. Mine includes things like, what do we need to bring to the boat for this weekend's project? It includes things like, I'm going to think about everything that we need to buy, possibly going on down the line, including I need to make sure that I have a new wine opener because ours bit the bullet after a number of years. So that's on my list. Is that critical right this minute? No. Do we have to have that before we go? Yes, but does it have to happen right this second? No. On this list of brain dump, I have, where are we going to put the water maker? What are we going to do in the quarter berth? Are we going to have it be a full quarter berth with a usable cushion? How can we make sure we don't turn it into the garage? And does that really make sense when it's the 2 of us on a pretty small boat and we're going to use all the space that we need to? I want to know if I can learn CAD to be able to draw interior spaces. This is all on my brain dump project list, which is a little bit crazy. It's better to have a brain dump project list than no list at all, but in terms of ultimate usability, I would highly recommend either looking at a project from a what you need to buy or from a what needs to be done before you actually head off cruising. So sometimes what you need to do is just get it all out there, and then you can figure out how to massage it, how to make it into something organized, how to understand what that list looks like and what that means for reality and projects that go on your boat. Whatever your project list, however you decide that you're going to organize it, I can't wait to hear the details about how you got the projects done, because after all, we make lists so we can check them all off. I'll see you out there. Thank you so much for tuning into the Boat Galley podcast today. We do our best to answer the questions that you have about the cruising lifestyle, whether it's something that's on your dream list, on your do list, or on your actively happening list. If you like this